Dr. Haley Morrow had only been at West Hollow General for 6 months when she first heard the rumors about the sub basement cold storage. Older staff never spoke of it unless for a slip of tongue, and even then their voices would drop low, their eyes darting to make sure no one else was listening. The sub basement was not on any map she had seen, but one Friday night, while on the late shift and chasing down a missing Cavender report, she found an old service elevator at the end of an unused corridor. Dust caked the buttons. Below the basement level was an unmarked button. She pressed it. The elevator groaned as it descended, and the doors creaked open. Haley stepped into a corridor lined with rusted metal walls, dim lights flickering overhead. The air was bitterly cold, each breath fogging in front of her face. A heavy metal door stood at the end of the hallway, marked simply Cold Storage 3B. It wasn't the standard morgue, this was older, forgotten. She pushed open the door. The inside was vast, lined with ancient freezers, most of them sealed shut with industrial latches and ice creeping from their seams. A low humming filled the air, constant, pulsing. Her breath quickened. The temperature here was below freezing, but she couldn't look away. She was drawn to the far corner where a freezer stood slightly ajar. As she approached, the hum grew louder. Something knocked from inside the freezer. Once, twice. Healy froze. A rational mind raced. Maybe gas expanding. Maybe equipment malfunction. Maybe. The knock came again, louder. A slow drag of fingernails followed, scratching against metal from inside. She staggered back. Logic failed her. The sound was too deliberate, too human. Then, from behind her, another freezer creaked open. She spun around. Nothing. The air grew colder. Her skin stung. The humming shifted, now sounding like whispering, low, unintelligible. She backed toward the elevator, but the hallway seemed longer now. The lights flickered harder. One went out. Behind her, the knocking stopped. Haley turned slowly. The freezer door in the corner was open wide. Inside, there was a black void. No eyes, no metal shelves, no corpse, just darkness. Then she saw the footprints, wet, bare footprints led from the freezer across the icy floor toward her. They were small, childlike. They stopped about 5 feet in front of her, yet no one was there until she saw the breath. A small, cold puff of vapor floated in midair, then another. She heard a whisper right next to her ear. We're not dead. Haley screamed and bolted toward the elevator. It took 3 punches of the button before the grill door finally opened. She didn't look back, not until the doors began to close. In the freezing hallway, half a dozen freezers stood open. A child's silhouette stood beneath one flickering light, pale and wet and unmoving. Another stood behind it, and another. The doors shut. When she got back to the main floor, Haley filed a report with security. No one took her seriously. Her ID badge did not register her accessing any level below the basement. The hospital logs claimed the sub basement had been sealed since 1994 after a failed refrigeration system led to the deaths of several pediatric patients whose bodies, for legal reasons, were never returned to families. Officially, they were transferred to another facility, but Haley knew better. She transferred hospitals 2 weeks later. West Hollow General has since renovated. The hallway leading to the service elevator is now sealed behind a new wall, but some nights janitors swear they hear knocking beneath the floor like a child's fist gently rapping on metal, knocking and sometimes whispers. When James Taylor was admitted to Greystone Psychiatric Hospital, he did not remember much, just flashes of blood, a scream, then nothing. The doctor said it was trauma induced amnesia. They gave him pills that made his hands tremble and his dreams weirder. Greystone was old, pink paint, yellowed ceilings, and rusted metal beds. It looked stranger at night. James used to think it was the meds until he noticed other patients in the ward. Angela, the girl who never spoke, had gouged something into her wall that read, "Don't listen too much." Ward C, where James was placed, had one rule: never look at the quiet room. It sat at the end of the hall, room 13, the only door with a lock on the outside. No one ever entered, no staff, no patients. Night, a strange, muffled tapping would echo from within. James asked about it once. Nurse Elkins turned pale. "Don't ask again." But the nightmares grew worse. He saw himself in a mirror with no face standing outside room 13. Whispers crept into his sleep, soft and pleading, "Let me out." One night, the storm outside killed electricity. Emergency lights buzzed dim red. The hallway was shadows and silence. Then, click. The door to room 13 creaked open. No one was near it. The lock lay on the floor, broken clean in two, as if twisted by something inhumanly strong. The air shifted, colder, thicker. James heard breathing that wasn't his. From within the dark room came a slow, dragging shuffle. He should have run, but the whisper came again, louder now, familiar. "James." He stepped forward, hand trembling on the knob. The room beyond was pitch black. He saw something move, a shape hunched and twitching in the corner. Then lightning flashed. For a second, he saw it, his own face staring back at him, but wrong. The eyes were hollow voids, bleeding black tears. The mouth hung open, jaw unhinged. It groined. James screamed. When the lights returned, staff found him in the hallway, curled in a ball, muttering nonsense. They sedated him. Later, they claimed the door to room 13 had never opened. They sealed it the next day. No explanation, no acknowledgement. Angela stopped eating. Others began to sleepwalk. Some scratched at their skin, whispering about the mirror man. Weeks later, James disappeared during the night. No camera footage, no alarms, just a message carved into the wall of room 13 in his handwriting. "I remember now, it lives behind your face." They assigned a new patient to his room the next week. Room 13 remains sealed, but some nights, even through the heavy doors, the staff still hear it, knocking, and laughter that sounds like James. St. Elora General was a quiet hospital, especially during the night shift. The halls were still lit by flickering fluorescents that hummed like distant insects. Jean, a third year nursing student, was finishing her rounds on the 12th floor, exhausted and eager to get down to the break room on the ground floor for a much needed coffee. She pressed the elevator button and waited. The elevator dinged and opened, empty. She stepped inside and hit G. The doors slid closed. The elevator hummed, then jolted slightly as it began to descend. The digital floor indicator above the doors blinked 12, 11, 10, 9. Suddenly, the light flickered. The elevator jerked to a stop between floors. Jane Martin, great, then hit the emergency button. Nothing happened, no sound, no response. Then the lights went out completely. For a few seconds, there was only silence and blackness. Then a faint, buzzing, fluorescent glow returned. But the floor number did not. The display was blank. The elevator started to move again, down, but not smoothly. It shuddered with each floor, groaning like old bones under pressure. Jean backed into a corner. She had a creeping sensation that something was wrong, not just a mechanical failure, but wrong in the way a locked door being opened was wrong. The air felt colder. The doors opened, but it wasn't the ground floor. It wasn't any floor Jane recognized. The hallway outside was dimly lit, the bulbs coated in grime. The floor was a stained, tile cracked, and walls lined with peeling paint. A low, wet sounding beep echoed from somewhere deep within. She did not want to step out. Just as she reached for the close door button, someone stepped in. It was a man in a hospital gown, barefoot. He did not look at her. He faced the wall of the elevator, hands by his sides. His skin was gray, not pale, gray, like concrete. Jane's throat went dry. Are you okay, sir? She asked. He did not respond. The elevator doors slid shut again, and the car resumed its descent. Going down, a mechanical voice said from the speaker, though Jane had never heard that voice before. 7, 6, 5. Man turned slowly, his face expressionless. His eyes were glazed over, unblinking. A dry trail of blood streaked from his hairline to his cheek. Then he opened his mouth, wider than a human should. A low, rattling breath came out, carrying words that made Jane's blood run cold. We should not be here. Jane screamed and slammed the emergency button again. The elevator did not stop. 4, 3, 2. The man turned his head back toward the elevator wall. Jane was so hysteric, her vision had started to blur out. He opened his mouth again. This time a voice came out, but it wasn't his. It was her own frantic voice. Help me, please. The elevator stopped at B2. The doors opened to a black hallway, no lights, just the sound of dripping water and a low electric hum, and something else. Footsteps, wet, dragging ones, going away. Jane did not move. She slammed the closed door button. The elevator doors crept shut just as the thing reached the threshold. Then she heard a scream from outside, a high-pitched, distorted wail, then silence. Suddenly, the elevator shot upward with terrifying speed. Jane shouted the whole way. Then, ding, the doors opened. It was the ground floor, bright, white light, clean floors, nurses chatting, the smell of coffee. Jane stumbled out, sobbing, barely able to breathe. One of the orderlies caught her. Hey, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. She looked back at the elevator. The doors were still open, but the car was empty, and just before they closed, the digital display blinked. Going down,